Okay, let's talk about something we're all seeing. In a world that is completely obsessed with AI and big data, there's this really weird paradox at the heart of most companies. They're drowning in information, but they are struggling to create any real value from it. So today, we're going to crack open the playbook on data strategy to figure out why, and more importantly, how to fix it.
This quote is actually over 40 years old, but man, has it ever been more true than right now? We all feel it, don't we? You've got endless spreadsheets, all these dashboards, but the actual knowledge, the real insight, feels like it's just out of reach. And that frustration, that's exactly what a real data strategy is supposed to fix.
And look, this isn't just a feeling. The problem is very, very real. Check this out. Recent studies are showing that over 90% of generative AI pilots fail to create measurable value. That's a staggering number, right? But here's the thing. This isn't really an AI problem. It's a symptom of a much deeper issue that's been haunting data projects for decades. It points to this deep, fundamental disconnect between all the tech effort and what the business actually gets out of it. Okay, so let's get into it. Why is everyone drowning in the first place? Well, if you take away just one thing from this section, let it be this. Data strategy. It's not a tech problem for the IT folks to solve. Nope. It's a business problem, and it demands a business solution. A really powerful way to frame this whole thing is to think of it like a game, a competitive sport. Your data strategy isn't just one thing you do. It's a full-on game with two sides that are totally different, but both are absolutely critical. You've got your offense, and you've got your defense. So your defense, right? Think of that as your fortress. It's all about protecting the business, making sure your data is clean, secure, and that you're meeting all the compliance rules. It's all about minimizing that downside risk. Then you've got your offense, and that's your rocket ship. That's how you use data to actually score points, to grow, to innovate, to create completely new value. It's all about maximizing that upside.
And it's just like a game of chess, isn't it? You can't win if you only play one side of the board. Yeah, a strong defense protects your king and all your important pieces, but it's the offense that actually lets you go for the win, for checkmate. You absolutely need both, and they have to work together.
So if it's a two-sided game, why are so many teams losing? Well, it turns out that most companies fall into the exact same, totally predictable traps that sabotage their efforts before they even really get started. So let's break them down one by one. All right, first up, we have what's called the hype trap. You've probably seen this one. This is when an exec comes in and says, "We need to do AI," but there's no actual business problem they're trying to solve. So what happens? The data team scrambles. They build something technically amazing, but fast forward 6 months, and nobody can point to a single dollar of ROI. It's a classic solution looking for a problem. Okay, next on the list is the foundation fallacy. This is that classic mistake of trying to build something amazing, like advanced analytics, on top of a foundation of just messy, low-quality data. It is literally like trying to build a skyscraper on quicksand. You would never do that in the real world, so why on earth do we do it with data? Bad data pretty much guarantees an expensive failure on the other end. And then there's maybe the most heartbreaking one of all, the adoption abyss. This is where the data team does incredible work. They find these brilliant, game-changing insights, and they just sit there in a dashboard that nobody ever looks at. The analysis might be perfect, but because it's not plugged into how the business actually works and makes decisions day to day, it creates exactly zero value, just a waste. This quote from Teradata just hits the nail on the head. It perfectly captures the chaos you get with no real strategy. You've got different teams, all trying to solve similar problems, and they all go off and build their own separate data kitchens. And the result? It's not just messy. It's an absolute massive drain on resources. You get these redundant costs, crippling complexity, and the whole organization just grinds to a halt. And this brings us to a really, really crucial point. When your data project isn't directly tied to a real business goal, one that has its own funding, it's basically just a lumbering giant walking straight for a cliff. Why? Because the second budgets get tight, and they always do, these nice-to-have projects, they're the first ones to get shoved right over the edge. Okay, so we've seen all the ways things can go wrong. We've seen the traps. Now, let's flip the script and talk about the playbook that helps you actually win. This is the modern approach, and it's built from the ground up for one thing: creating real, measurable value. So, okay, after looking at all those failures, what do you think is the single biggest mistake a company can make with its data strategy? It's this, choosing one side over the other. The old way of thinking always forces this false choice. It's like, should we focus on defense or offense? Should we have control or flexibility? But the modern playbook, it tells us that asking that question in the first place is the fundamental mistake. The winning idea, the real game changer, is this concept called defense-enabling offense. It's this beautiful idea that a strong defense isn't something that gets in the way of your offense. It's the very foundation that makes a powerful offense possible. I mean, think about it, right? You can only move fast and innovate with confidence when you actually trust your data. So good governance, high-quality data, that stuff doesn't slow you down. It actually gives your offense incredible speed and power.
So what does this all mean? It means your strategy can't just be an accident. It has to be a series of deliberate, intentional moves. Every single defensive play you make should be designed to set up a future offensive opportunity. Okay, so that sounds great in theory, but how do you actually do it? Well, it really boils down to this simple 4-step playbook. First, step 1, gain sponsorship. And that means you link every single data project to a real, already funded business initiative. You stop asking for money for data governance, and you start asking for money to, say, improve the customer retention program. Step 2, develop a roadmap. You prioritize what you're going to build based on what those business goals need and when they need it. Step 3, align your capabilities. Now you build the tech stuff, the data quality functions, the master data management, all the things your roadmap actually needs to succeed. And finally, step 4, implement incrementally. You embed these changes into the daily business processes. You make it routine, not some big, scary, one-off project. All right, but a playbook is pretty useless if you have no idea what the score is, right? A winning data strategy has to be measured, but not by how cool the tech is. It has to be measured by its actual impact on the business, period.
And this quote from David Platt is just, it's perfect, absolutely crucial. Listen, your stakeholders, especially the execs at the top, they honestly don't care how complex your data pipelines are. They just don't. What they care about is results. The whole point of this exercise is to turn all that raw information into strategic knowledge that helps them make better, smarter decisions. And here is exactly how you do that. You draw a direct, straight line from the data work you're doing to a business KPI that matters. Just look at this table. If your initiative is about operational efficiency, you don't talk about your ETL jobs, you talk about the metric. How many manual hours did we reduce? And the business impact. How much money did we save? Same thing for customer retention. You measure a reduced churn rate to show a higher customer lifetime value. When you frame it this way, the value of what you're doing becomes totally clear and, well, undeniable.
So here's the question I want you to take back to your team. The question to really chew on. Is your data strategy actually designed to create value? Or is it just managing complexity? Because what this modern playbook shows us is that you don't have to choose. You really can build a defense that is so strong it becomes your single greatest offensive weapon.